shall get started. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for attending this meeting. You're here to learn something about attachment theory, something near and dear to what I really love to talk about. I think it really starts, in the beginning of our lives and the people who were around. Attachment theory explores the profound impact of early childhood relationships on a person's emotional and social development. It emphasizes oh, why that got messed up. It emphasizes the fundamental human need for secure and loving connections. I guess this one little thing wanted to have the words twice. I don't understand that, but hey, hopefully it's not throughout the whole slide deck. But here we go. So let's talk about what is attachment theory. So there's four different components of attachment theory. There's bonding and relationships, secure base, a psychological development, and emotional regulation. So, bonding and relationship attachment theory explores the importance of early childhood experiences in shaping our relationships throughout life. And, that's one of the things that is really important because between the ages of 0 and 7, we're like sponges. So, we're just absorbing a ton of information. And that's when some of these beliefs are created, right? When we go into what the different, attachments are, secure, anxious, avoidant, there's anxious avoidant, disorganized, these things tend to, create these sometimes good beliefs, but sometimes unintelligent beliefs about how we see the world. And the first real relationship that we have is with our parents. As we get older, we go to school and we have friends, and then we have teachers, and we have all these different influences that can affect how we perceive the world, right? We have our conscious and we have our subconscious. Our brain is made up of, the limbic system, the prefrontal cortex, fight, flight, and freeze, autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic, your sympathetic nervous system. So all these things really come into play. And if we start to develop some of these, what we see and what we perceive as an anxious uh, situation, then we kind of develop some beliefs of surrounding anxiousness, or we develop beliefs about, hopefully the secure. If we see our parents are secure and they're and we're not exposed to too much, violence on TV or whatever the environmental factors are, we're able to grow up and have some secure attachments if we don't experience any little micro or macro traumas in our lives, and then we have the avoidant. If we see our parents, like if someone never said like I love you growing up, or never gave you a hug or kind of pushed you away, that could cause some beliefs to develop that would make you think I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me, right? So we need to have a secure base. That's like the foundation of what we of the programs our brains are like programs, are like storage devices. So in our subconscious, if we don't have this sense of security for us as a child, then we're gonna wind up starting off on the wrong foot. Okay. And that's going to impact a lot of different things in our lives. At some point, for my own personal experience, I went through my childhood and teens not really understanding, what was going on with me. And I really didn't know about emotional regulation. Grew up in a kind of dysfunctional family, and it caused a lot of problems. But then at some point when I turned 22, you kind of have to make a decision if that you have to take responsibility and kind of unprogram the things that were programmed and learn the right way of how you're supposed to, learn certain skills, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So emotional regulation is very important. Attachment theory suggests that our attachment styles influence how we regulate our emotions, cope with stress, and form bonds with others. And then there's the psychological development. It plays a crucial role in shaping our social, emotional, and psychological development. Okay. So here are the different types of attachment styles. And I went over it a little bit. We have secure attachment. Secure attachment individuals are individuals who are confident and comfortable with intimacy. They are able to trust and depend on others, and they feel safe and secure in their relationships. Anxious attachments are someone who's characterized by a need for constant reassurance and approval. They may worry about their partner's love and commitment. They may be very jealous, right? Avoidant attachment is marked by tendency to suppress their emotions. They have difficulty forming close bonds or expressing their feelings. And disorganized attachment is a style characterized by a combination of anxious and avoidant. If you have that one, it's really difficult if you're anxious and avoidant. They may experience intense emotional distress and difficulty regulating their emotions. So those are the four different types, and I'm very surprised I was able to read that without reading the duplicate words. I don't know what happened to this PowerPoint. Something happened, and basically these extra words got inserted. So I apologize for that. So let's talk about what a secure attachment is. So secure attachment is the healthiest attachment style. People with secure attachment feel safe and confident in their relationships. They trust their partners and believe their needs will be met. They're able to express their emotions freely. They feel comfortable with intimacy and independence, and they can balance both, which is great. They're able to navigate conflicts constructively. Their ability to form secure attachments is a lifelong process, influenced by early childhood experiences and their willingness to develop a secure attachment throughout their life. Now, it's very rare, I mean, for people to automatically have a secure attachment, especially with a lot of things that we're exposed to. And I think it's particularly harder for men as well, because there are these myths of masculinity that men tend to adopt. And, underneath all of this, to really form a secure attachment is really to become vulnerable. Truly vulnerable, which, vulnerability, I believe, transcends both masculine and feminine masculinity and femininity, right? It's at your soul level. And when you really, and in the core of that is really learning to love yourself. Not too many people can say that they truly, truly love themselves, right? We've been exposed, and none of this is anybody's fault because we weren't taught. We weren't taught these things. Our parents did the best that they possibly could with what information they were given. And, these are things that should be taught in our like early teens, early 20s. So that way we can develop these skills, right? Before we get involved in relationships. Just imagine a world where people learn some skills in order to have a secure attachment. Maybe there wouldn't be, people wouldn't be rushing to get married or be in a relationship because they need somebody to fill a hole for them because they're anxious, or they go into a relationship that's anxious, or they have the inability to basically be in a relationship or be there for someone, and they're avoidant. you know the world would be a much better place if we learned certain skills in order to have this secure attachment. The anxious attachment, the fear of abandonment. Anxious attachment is characterized by a strong need for closeness and constant reassurance from loved ones. This can lead to excessive worry about rejection or abandonment. I know that's something I had. I had a lot of abandonment, and that produced a lot of shame for me. I would think that for some reason, some underlying belief, I made up that it was my fault when really it wasn't. I was just kind of, the collateral damage of some adult things that had happened. And unfortunately, that affects you as a child. Your emotional dependence. People with anxious attachment often feel emotionally dependent on their partners and may struggle to regulate their emotions without their support. Overthinking and jealousy, right? I don't know if anybody on this call could identify with this, right? Anxious attachment can also manifest as overthinking, jealousy, and have a tendency to interpret neutral events as negative, seeing the glass half empty all the time. right? Thinking that somebody's out to get them. And, our thoughts, our beliefs that we create affect our thoughts, and our thoughts produce our feelings produce our actions, and our actions produce the results. And it's just, if you're caught in this loop of, this anxiousness, you're just going to keep repeating the cycle over and over and over again with certain things that, are happening in your life. And then you start to attach meaning to certain things with your beliefs subconsciously, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. And hopefully at some point you start to realize this, but sometimes it takes a traumatic event to happen where you're like, oh my God, I got to basically change this behavior. I got to learn to become more secure. Like, what's going on, with me in my soul. I wasn't born, all of us were born happy babies. And for some reason, one way or another, we get programmed based on the situation we're born into, and somehow the programs start to get changed, right? And that's where we have to really learn to take ownership for our behavior at some point in our lives, and really work on ourselves if we want to live a flourishing life. Okay. The avoidant attachment. Individuals with an avoidant attachment style may have difficulty expressing their emotions and forming close relationships. They may tend to suppress their emotions and avoid intimacy, fearing vulnerability and rejection. They often prioritize independence and self-reliance, and may withdraw emotionally when feeling overwhelmed or threatened, right? So that this particular attachment is ruled by fear, right? Self-centered fear. What is self-centered fear? It's either I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I have, or I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want or need. Instead of the antidote, learning to live in the moment, with grace and gratitude, and being able to love yourself fully with vulnerability. These people tend to be like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I have. I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want or need. So therefore, I am just going to be avoidant and not deal with anything. That is basically someone living with a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset. Okay. And the disorganized attachment, which is the anxious avoidant, right? Disorganized attachment is the most complex and challenging attachment style. People with this style often experience conflicting emotions and behaviors, making behaviors, making it difficult to form healthy relationships. So you may be really learning this for the first time and be like, oh my God, I know someone who's like this, or maybe I have some of these characteristics. What do I do? So, how these attachment styles develop, they're formed in early childhood. Okay. As infants, we interact with our primary caregivers. Again, this has a lot to do with, the development. Um, Repeated interactions between the child and caregiver create these patterns again, right? So these things are just, with our brains, the way the brain works, we create neural pathways. A thought is a neural pathway. And one of these things, repeated patterns, it's like almost like deliberate practice. The way I could basically give you an example of how these thoughts are created and how we create these things is, if you're at a job and your company makes you change your password every like 3 months, you're basically typing in that password for 3 months, and then all of a sudden the next day you come in and they say, okay, we want you to change your password. You may change that password, right? Go up, get a cup of coffee, and come back, and you start typing the old password again. It's deliberate practice, doing it over and over again, that slowly but surely you shed that old password, that old neural pathway, and make that other one stronger, right? So that way you're basically going to be able to type that new password over and over again without even thinking about it. That's how we create habits. A habit is a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue always stays the same. It's like the computer is the cue. The routine is you come in and you type in the password. The reward is you get into the computer. But the routine changes, so then you have to basically do consistent action in order to repeat that. The one thing though that you have to realize is that the old password that was there, it doesn't go away. You still have that neural pathway. So you could go 2 months basically uh with the new password and come in one day and you didn't get enough sleep and maybe you had a couple of drinks the night before and you could type that new password, that old password without realizing it, but then you quickly realize, oh God, I did the new password. It's the same thing like with these, the way that you could create new neural pathways. So with these, what I'm trying to get here or try to emphasize is just because you could identify maybe with one of these attachment styles doesn't mean that you can't change. So if you feel like you're anxious or you're avoidant, don't have this fixed mindset that this is who you are, that you can never change. You can become secure. I know I'm living proof of it. I used to be very anxious and I developed a secure attachment because I learned to love myself. I learned to become vulnerable, to be able to express my feelings, wants, and needs. Not be a people pleaser. So, if please, if you feel like, oh my God, this is where I'm at and this is really resonating with me, and how do I change this? You can change this, okay? Later experiences can be an impact, relationships with significant figures such as teachers, friends, or romantic partners contribute to the development and refinement of an attachment style. Okay, so again, we have these early childhood experiences and attachments, which can cause someone to be secure, anxious, or avoidant. Attachment and relationships. And secure attachments can foster trust, intimacy, and emotional stability in romantic relationships. This allows for open communication and healthy conflict resolution. We're at a stage now where basically divorce is almost the 50% of the people are getting divorced. Usually there's like an empty nest situation. People are getting divorced, and there's a whole host of reasons. But you could wonder, like, I wonder, how much this plays into this. The fact that we didn't learn some of these skills, and how much uh, you know, the attachments that we made affect our relationships, right? And the fear of us staying in something that maybe isn't really healthy for us, right? Some of us stay in things that we really shouldn't longer than we should because we have this fear of the unknown, which really doesn't exist in nature. Okay. We should be living life with open curiosity, not that self-centered fear. Securely attached individuals tend to form strong and lasting friendships characterized by empathy, support, and mutual respect. Secure attachments in childhood lays the foundation for healthy and fulfilling family relationships, promoting open communication and emotional closeness. Secure attachments can influence how individuals interact with colleagues and superiors, promoting collaboration, trust, and a positive work environment. So, this can really affect our self-esteem, right? So when you have a secure attachment, you feel like you have a sense of self-worth and value. People who feel secure in their relationships tend to have a healthier self-image. They have more compassion for themselves. If you have an insecure attachment, this could lead to low self-esteem, self-doubt. Oh, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? Individuals with the anxious or avoidant attachment may struggle with feelings of inadequacy or unworthiness. Okay. But again, like I said in the other slide, if you're feeling like this, there is hope. You can change. It's just making a decision to create new neural pathways and learn some skills and things that could help you in order to love yourself and be vulnerable. And most importantly, not care about what other people think of you, right? A lot of us walk around and we tend to not be ourselves and we boast. A lot of men tend to do that because inside we're insecure, I should say. So we have to learn to develop the secure attachment so we can have self-worth, self-efficacy, self-compassion. Attachment and emotional regulation. So regulating emotions. So secure attachment fosters emotional regulation. Secure individuals are better able to manage their emotions and cope with stress. Okay, so people who are, more secure won't rage or jump to conclusions. They're able to practice the pause. They're able to self-regulate. They're able to use their prefrontal cortex more, which is your logical thinking system, rather than your limbic system, which is your fight, flight, and freeze. They're able to practice the pause and think about things. In addition to that, since we are human, we may get charged, but people with who are, secure won't be so defensive. They'll be more empathetic and supportive. They'll want to hear what's going on with their significant other, and they want to make it a win-win situation. Individuals with insecure attachments may struggle to regulate their emotions, leading to difficulty handling challenging experiences. And we want to build self-awareness. Developing self-awareness is essential for emotional regulation, right? It's hard work to do, especially if you have unresolved trauma. If you have unresolved trauma, this is going to be very difficult. So I would highly recommend that if you are someone who has micro traumas or traumas that are unresolved, that you seek help and get those traumas under control. So, so that way you can start building the self-awareness, building yourself up, and help yourself live a flourishing life. So recognizing and understanding your emotions is crucial for managing them effectively. Trying to come in. Okay. Becoming a secure attachment. How do we do that? Well, it's self-awareness, right? It's a journey. It's like what we talked about in the last slide. You've got to want to do the work. This is the thing. You know, you I have a motto when it comes to helping people and other practitioners. You can only help those who swim towards you, right? So you really have to learn to help yourself. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I heard like a noise. Just want to make sure that there wasn't anything going on there. Um, we want to build trust, right? We definitely want to learn to build trust, but also build trust in ourselves. We want to build the emotional regulation muscle. Really important to learn to manage your emotions. Want to build real-time resilience skills. That's not even on here, but that's really important too. And we want to be able to express your needs and wants effectively. Communication, communication, communication. So many people are really scared to communicate what their wants and needs are, and that goes back to an insecurity. It could go back to an anxious attachment style, right? Or it could be an avoidant as well. And just imagine the poor soul who has the anxious and avoidant. Very difficult for someone to communicate their wants and needs and their feelings, right? So as you become more secure, your relationships improve, which in turn fosters further security. Again, this this is really up to you. The amount of work that you have to put into it is a decision that you have to make, okay? But you were born for a reason. You were meant to do something great. So why not, right? Why not try and work on this if you're struggling so you can live a flourishing life? And who knows, maybe the things that you learn, like what I'm doing right now, based on all the things that I had to overcome, maybe you'll become someone who will want to help others as well, which I'm trying to do too. Okay. Building trust and intimacy takes, again, vulnerability. Vulnerability is the key here. One person who I listen to, Brene Brown, she is the expert on vulnerability, someone you may want to Google and listen to on YouTube. You could find so many. One of the things that is so great about the tech world that we live in right now. Many people like knock, oh, social media is like the demon, and the kids are getting like screwed up by it. Yes, there are some negatives, but we also live in a technological revolution where anything we want to learn is basically on the internet. And we could basically we could take control of our own destiny and listen to podcasts on this. We could watch YouTube videos, we could read books, but there's so much out there that you could take advantage of. And it's just a question of you making that decision. Waking up one day while you're brushing your teeth, looking at yourself in the mirror and talking to yourself and saying, you know what? I'm going to take one small step to change my life and to deal with some of the things that I've been putting off so that way I can, you know, break the cycle, the cycle that's been going on in my family for years and years and years. I'm going to be that person that breaks the cycle, right? So vulnerability, that's the key, being truly vulnerable with yourself. Open communication, again, I know I'm repeating these things, but they are so critical and important in order for you to be able to live a flourishing life, to be able to, and that does not mean that adversity is not going to happen. Adversity is, that's what this life is a struggle, right? But it's our perception and the choices that we make. It's not the circumstances, it's our state of mind. We have to learn to control our state of mind. And we want to learn these skills, right, in order to bounce back quicker from adversity. For instance, if one segment of your life is your business. You have a business, and for some reason your business isn't doing as well, and you're at an 8 in your business, and you drop down to a 4. Well, you want to develop the skills, right, to work on these things, okay? So that way you could go from a 4 back to an 8 very quickly and not spiral down the rabbit hole. You have to build up your tool chest in order to be able to be strong and learn from your experience, build up real-time resilience skills, be able to learn how to become your own cognitive-based therapist. What is the evidence for? What is the evidence against this thought I'm having, right? Shared experiences, spending quality time together and engaging in meaningful activities can build intimacy and strengthen your bond. Communicating your needs, express yourself clearly, be open and honest about what you need. Use I statements. Focus on how you feel, not on blaming the other person. We're very quick to basically point our fingers at other people, but you look at my hand here, we have one finger pointing at the person, and we have 3 pointing back at us, right? We also want to learn how to develop the skill of active listening. Listen to what the other person is saying and try to understand their point of view, right? When you have a secure attachment, I mentioned this earlier, you're not so quick to go on the defensive. You want to be open-minded. You want to listen to what they're saying. You might even want to paraphrase back to the person what they said to give them the sense that they were heard, right? So imagine what the world would be like if we learned communication skills. And we always want to find common ground. Look for areas where you agree to strengthen your connection, right? We're not striving, there is no win-lose, right? We want a win-win. And sometimes the win-win is sometimes we just don't see things and eye to eye, and we just have to accept that. But that doesn't mean, right, that there is a loser in this, okay? There is some loser. You want to practice the self-compassion, right? Recognizing your limits, acknowledge that you're human and that everyone makes mistakes, okay? It's progress, not perfection. We know that I think one of the things that I created something called the 9 ingredients of love when I was 22. The 9 ingredients are sincerity, courtesy, unselfishness, patience, tolerance, humility, good temper, generosity, and being guileless. Okay. And basically, having humility, being modest, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your strengths is really important. But again, you have to go on the journey of self-introspection and be able to find out, like, who am I? Why am I here? Okay. What is my passion? What am I supposed to do in this earth school? Okay. Treat yourself with kindness. Be gentle with yourself when you're struggling and offer support in the same way you would to a friend. Cultivate self-acceptance, right? Embrace your imperfections and learn to accept yourself as you are. Challenge negative thoughts. Identify and challenge harsh self-criticism and more compassion and understanding thoughts, right? Sometimes we're our own worst enemies and we have to cut ourselves, a break. Okay. We also want to seek support from others, and sometimes that's hard. Sometimes people have a hard time asking for help. But whoops, sorry, I got to go back. People who are able to do that, who love themselves, really understand that seeking support from others is not a weakness, it's a strength. Okay. When we don't seek support from others, basically we're afraid, we're in our ego, we're afraid what other people think of us. Okay. And that's not really a healthy way to live. Okay. Lean on loved ones. And if you don't have loved ones, there's plenty of social workers and coaches and therapists, friends that you could share your concerns with, share your feelings openly. Okay. Again, seek professional help, join support groups like this one, right? Holistic Well-Care Advisors, where you could learn these different concepts and tools. Okay. And you could after, when there's an open discussion, you could be vulnerable and share what's going on. And people want to help each other, right? You're here to learn certain things. You want to help each other. This is what it's all about. So I want to commend you on actually being here and going through this. So thank you for that. Pat yourselves on the back. Overcoming attachment challenges. So identifying reoccurring patterns in your relationship and behaviors, notice how attachment insecurities influence them. Engage in deep introspection, exploring past experiences and their impact on your attachment style. Again, when I had to address this, I look back at the trauma, the abandonment, some of the physical abuse that had happened, the bullying. And I had to like take ownership and be like, okay, yeah, I really need to address this because I'm not feeling really loved. I don't love myself, and I need to understand why that's happening, right? And that's by seeking out help. That's by diving into different books. That's why that's what watching podcasts, listening to different things, right? There's so many resources. One thing I want to say is, if you're experiencing some really severe traumas, don't do that alone. It may be very difficult if you start reading books or doing some podcast things. You could maybe incorporate that, but sometimes that might make the situation worse. So really think about reaching out and getting some help from a professional. Okay. Understand your triggers, emotional reactions, and coping mechanism. You can keep a journal, allowing you to manage your responses effectively. You want to establish clear boundaries. Boundaries are really important to protect your emotional well-being and ensure your needs are met in relationships, right? So many of us, we get in relationships, we have to learn if we were born, we were raised in a not so good situation. We never were taught about boundaries. And then we're expected to know about boundaries when we get into relationships. You only really learn how to set boundaries when you truly become vulnerable with yourself and really know who you are. And that's work that just continues. And your boundaries sometimes change. But if you don't set boundaries, then you're going to wind up making the same mistake over and over and over, and the cycle is going to continue. Practice self-kindness and acceptance. Acknowledge that healing takes time and effort. It does. These things take time. Openly communicate your feelings. Again, this has come up so many times in this PowerPoint presentations about openly communicating your feelings, needs, and fears, fostering authentic connection with others. Okay. You want to heal from past attachment wounds. Again, I mentioned this earlier. You might have some trauma, some micro trauma that you haven't dealt with. And past relationships can have a lasting impact on how you form attachments in the present. But you can heal from these wounds. There's people who basically will go into a relationship and they'll get out of it, but then they'll quickly get right back into another relationship instead of taking the time for themselves in order to heal, right? To learn from the experience, to not make the same mistake that they made. Why do I pick this person? Sometimes we subconsciously pick an avoidant or an anxious person because we don't even realize that that's where it's coming from these, I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? I did something wrong. Like these beliefs that are unintelligent beliefs. And then we get caught in this cycle. And it takes usually a traumatic event to be like, oh my God, I'm keep doing the same thing over and over again. You start to question, why don't my relationships ever work out? And it's not because of the other person. It's again that you got to take a look at you, point the finger at you. And that takes some self reflection, therapy, and practicing self compassion. You want to acknowledge and validate your feelings. You want to challenge your negative thought patterns, which is cognitive reframing. Okay. The way you speak to yourself, metacognition. Develop healthy coping mechanism, which is mindfulness, journaling, exercise. You want to build self esteem and self worth, celebrate your strengths. And by engaging in these practices, you can begin to heal from past wounds and build stronger, healthier relationships in the future. How do you maintain a secure attachment? Well, it's continued communication, it's constant work. Me, I'm going to be 55 in February, and I'm listening to listen to a podcast every single day. For me, I love learning. So I want to learn different things. The work never ends, right? And it's these, and again, like I had mentioned earlier about the when I gave you the scenario about the password, those triggers, those things that happened in my past are still there. And people, places, things, I could be hungry, tired, I could not be, sometimes I'm not feeling well, and it could trigger. I still have like the thought that'll come onto my head that's just totally irrational, but I'm very quick now at saying, I don't listen to myself. I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? It's just there, right? We still have these things. That's why it's important to build these tools in your tool chest so when they do come up, you just say, that was the old me. Sometimes maybe you might have to, if it's really bad, say, all right, little Dan, I love you very much. This isn't you. I'm Big Dan. I'm going to take care of you. You're safe. Everything's fine. And you're going to be okay. Right. So it takes continued communication to share honest and openly with your partner, with your friends, whomever you feel comfortable with. You always want to practice self-care. You want to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually, working out, eating right, getting enough sleep, meditating, getting a massage, a lot of self care. You always want to build self care into your day. And you want to build strong social support. It's very hard to build strong social support if you're still avoidant and anxious, because then you're kind of in the blaming part of it, or you're kind of like in a victim mode because you think people are against you. So you got to work on this, try to become secure so you can have this strong social support. Surround yourself with people who are going to be there for you emotionally, who provide emotional stability and a sense of belonging. And again, continuing your growth. Keep working on your personal development and strive to become the best version of yourself. And this fosters a sense of fulfillment and strengthens your relationship. You may not wake up every day like, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest day in the whole world. And woo, yay, life is wonderful. No, that's not realistic. You may wake up, I feel a little low energy. But hey, that's when you go to, oh, you know what? I'm pretty grateful for some of the things that I have. And just like how cloudy days turn into sunny days, this just has to pass, right? So, again, it's not the circumstance, it's your state of mind, right? Some conclusion and key takeaways: attachments matter. So remember that if you're not addressing these attachments, things such as being disorganized or anxious avoidant, anxious or avoidant, and you're not feeling secure, you're going to be struggling throughout your life. You want to become secure. That is the goal. Okay. And you want to make this a journey, right? Of healing from past wounds. Understanding yeah, requires it basically requires understanding, acceptance, and a commitment to growth. And in order for have person to have personal growth and to maintain that personal growth, you have to develop your tool chest, okay? Building trust, communicating needs, practicing self-compassion, seeking support from others. But there's other things that you need to do as well. You need to learn resilience. You need to learn what thinking traps are. You need to learn how your brain operates. You need to learn the difference between growth versus fixed mindset. You need to learn about self-centered fear, unrealistic expectations, perfectionism. These are the things that basically, you know, can help you build a tool chest so you can learn to live in the moment with grace and gratitude. So I basically created a course to help you with that called Get Real, Deal, and Heal. So my journey when I was between the ages of 22 and 24, I went to therapy and really dealt with my trauma, okay? But when I was done with my therapy between the ages of 24, 22, and 24, and I was felt like, okay, I addressed my trauma, I confronted the people who did what they did. Nobody taught me what was next. Like, what do you do now? Like, how do you maintain, the that those triggers that I mentioned before, those neural pathways that are still there? How do I keep them at bay? Right? What is my passion? Like, what do I want to do with my life? Nobody really teaches you that. They don't, it's like, okay, you learn what you learned from therapy, okay, off you go. So I decided to create this course that you could go at your own pace. It's 74 lessons consisting of positive psychology skills. There is an option for one-on-one coaching after each session because it's 7 modules. And this is what positive psychology teaches you, okay? In each of these different areas of your life, I'm giving you certain skills and tools in order to manage these different areas of your life, such as positivity, engagement, relationships, meaning, achievement, and vitality. So why not invest in yourself? Okay. So basically, I've created this course and the modules I mentioned these during the presentation. Self-centered fear. You're either afraid you're going to lose what you have, you're not going to get what you want or need. Well, what is the antidote for self-centered fear? For self-centered fear, it's learning to live in the moment. For unrealistic expectations, right? Recognizing and moving to healthy expectations. What is the antidote for unrealistic expectations that we have for ourselves? Or people, places, and things. It's gratitude. And lastly, perfectionism is the third negative behavioral pattern that most people suffer from. And what is the antidote? It's learning to love yourself, right? Really important. So, and underneath all these different 3 negative behavioral patterns are all the beliefs that we have that are stored in our subconscious, right? The I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? I did something wrong. These unintelligent beliefs that affect our thoughts, feelings, actions, and results every day. I created a transformational toolkit to help people. And basically, there's long game coaching as well. So, for you guys who attended this, which I'm so grateful for, the total price for the course is $349, but with a coupon code Zen50, you get it for $299. So this you could use your phone to scan that as well. Again, this presentation is going to be, I'm recording it, so it's going to be put in the actual chat, and I'm going to send it to the people who signed up for this event as well. I also, again, deal with, like I had mentioned, with holistic well-care advisors. I'm really big into the gut microbiome. So I include my Get Real, Deal, and Heal course in these programs that I offer as well. So these are some of the programs if you're struggling, like I have the ability to do comprehensive stool testing to test for leaky gut, SIBO, parasites, a bunch of different things. So if that's something that you're struggling with, and you want to also have the Get Real Deal and Heal course, this may be the thing for you. I also do one-on-one coaching as well. So that's something that you may want to take advantage of. And for those who, can't afford those things, I also wrote a book about this that has my Get Real Deal and Heal course in it. So this is on Amazon right now in December. I have someone who's doing, it's going to be on audio. So probably by January, I'll be releasing the audio version for this as well. So it's on, you could get it for Kindle, you could get it for paperback, and then in January it'll be available on audio as well. Okay. And that has my Get Real Deal and book, the real course in it. And it also describes my transformation. So I want to thank you for listening. Okay. Sorry again about the words. I don't know what happened, why the PowerPoint presentation got messed up like that, where it was repeating words. But I love this quote. So if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. So you have to ask yourself, am I doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Because if you are, that's insanity. So, you gotta make the decision to change. Okay. So I want to thank you for that. I'm gonna stop the share. And we still have people here. Hooray. Very good. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to actually ask people to unmute. So I'm gonna have to do that one by one, I think. And I'm gonna into the questions in the chat, and we will deal with that. All right, let's see. All right. So I see a question from Chris. How
Yep.
much how much do you think the gut biome affects our mental health? Well, there's a thing called the gut-brain axis.
If you can
Sorry.
hear me, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with the attachment styles and whatnot, and I've been going to therapy on and off. It's been very, very effective for me. Um, but the gut bio thing, um, I started taking a probiotic like 4 years ago at the advice of my girlfriend at the
Mhm.
time. And it's been very helpful for me from a physical standpoint. So I guess again, and I eat very well. I feel very good for a guy 60 years old in good shape. So I'm like, okay, can I improve myself even more? So what goes into that other than eating right and smart and not eating, putting crap in your body?
Well, there's a lot of factors involved in that, and that could even be, Chris, your hormones. I don't know if you're getting your hormones checked out to make sure your testosterone levels are actually at peak performance, so to speak. One of the things that when I talk to people, and it's happened for me, I'm going to be 55 in February, and I'm
Right.
able to do my own comprehensive blood work, right? So I look at my testosterone. And even though my testosterone would be considered by a doctor, if it's in the 400, 500 range, they would say that that's normal. But yet I was still feeling lethargic. I was still feeling, even though I was going to the gym, working out, eating right, I felt lethargic all the time. So I boosted my testosterone by going on something called enclomyphene, um,
Mm-hmm.
which which is something that some people just go on natural testosterone, and that's fine. But once you do that, then you're basically stuck on testosterone for the rest of your life. Enclomyphene is something that they used to give men who to boost their sperm count when they were low to help, their wives get pregnant. But it
Mm-hmm.
also it helps your body produce its own, increases its own testosterone by affecting your pituitary gland. So
Mm-hmm.
it works for some people, it doesn't work for others. For me, it worked magic, and my testosterone went up to over 1,000. My free testosterone went from 9 to 26. So, and the nice thing about that is that you could cycle on and off of it, because you don't want to stay on it, because you want your body, your pituitary gland, to produce its own. So you go on
Right.
it for little bit, you go off of it a little bit. But going back to the gut microbiome, there is this gut-brain axis, and most people don't understand that most of your neurotransmitters, especially serotonin, is produced in your gut. Okay.
Right, right,
So that's a huge thing. So, and one of the things that I really am passionate about. I'm actually trademarking the phrase test, don't ingest. It's nice that you basically are taking a probiotic, but I've seen it so many times where people will take a probiotic and then they'll give themselves SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, because they're thinking that they need a probiotic, but they never did the test to find out what their microbiome diversity is. So
right,
that's
right,
so that's why I give, I'm able to do, through two different companies, one Microbiome Labs, which really focuses in and shows from a DNA perspective your microbiome, and then it'll tell you what you're lacking and what you might have too much of. And then I do another test through Vibrant America that will tell you whether or not you have leaky gut, you have SIBO, you have parasites, you may have wheat sensitivities, other things that you don't even realize. A lot of people don't understand, don't realize that they may be eating healthy for certain foods like dairy and wheat, but not realize that they have a sensitivity which causes inflammation, which then crosses the blood-brain barrier, which then causes your mental state to not feel healthy. You're not going to feel good
right,
because you're eating things that you are leaking into your bloodstream. Your bloodstream, because of the leaky gut, is saying, hey, I'm going to have an IgG response, immunity response, and it's going to basically try to attack that. And that's where a lot of people get caught in this autoimmune situation where they feel like they have rashes, they have unexplained like joint pain, they have
right,
arthritis, they have all these things, and then they go to the doctor and they get caught in the vicious cycle of, hey, take this prescription drug, not realizing that the problem really stems from their gut.
right. Okay.
Does,
All
does
right.
that answer
Thank you.
your question?
Thanks.
Great. Martin, I can feel secure, anxious, and avoidant depending on the situation and person I'm with. Does that mean I'm not any one particular type? I think that you could probably fall into different types at different stages in your life, but you're the one that is in control of how you are. Like someone else cannot make you feel one way. You allow them to make you feel that way. And maybe you might want to emphasize or explain a little more, Martin, if I'm not touching or explaining it correctly.
Oh, I don't feel like people make me feel something. I mean, I take responsibility for my reaction or being triggered. But as I've been learning about attachment styles, um, I find myself kind of resonating with many of the elements that, you talked about today or elsewhere that I've read. Um, uh, I've tried a few online assessments, although they're a little frustrating because they ask me these complex questions and I'm supposed to answer yes or no. Do you experience A and B and C? It's like yes or no. It's like, well, I experience A lot, B a little, and C not at all. So do I answer yes or no? So
Yeah.
it's tough to do that on my own. But I mean, I think it makes sense that you might be secure at work, and you might be avoidant with your obnoxious family, and you might be anxious in a close relationship. I mean that or to an extent. Obviously, no one's ever 100% anything. So that's kind of what I'm coming to conclude as I
Yeah.
absorb this information. Does that help with my question?
Yeah, and I think what you said is spot on. That you could definitely be and I'm thank you for clarifying that because now I understand better what you were articulating. Yeah, I think you can be. I think the thing though, the one word that's coming to my head that's just keeps flashing is mask, mask, mask. And the reason why it's coming to the reason why the word mask is coming is I think it boils down for me is the vulnerability piece. It's like, why am I secure at work, but why am I still feeling, why am I feeling this way with family, like avoidant? I like, why am I still secure? And is the fact that I'm secure because I'm, I think we have to be careful like how we use the words. I still think you could be secure if you're avoiding family who are dysfunctional.
Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
I'm using avoidant techniques, but my motivation is secure because they're so toxic. I just don't want them near me.
exactly. So I think that
Okay.
you're still being secure, right? But you can't like use the word, oh, I'm being like I'm an avoidant attachment style because I'm doing that. I think you have to differentiate. I'm avoiding them
Oh,
because they, yeah,
oh, in other words, I have good boundaries because they don't. But
exactly.
but yeah, because when I read this stuff, it's like, oh, is that avoidant or is that secure and pushing away for healthy reasons?
I think it's secure and pushing away for healthy reasons.
Okay.
That's, I think, we tend to, we could have a tendency to overanalyze this stuff too much, right? And again, that's where the self-compassion comes in. We have to say, okay, you know, and we can ask ourselves a question like, is what I'm doing making my life better or is it making my life worse? I think if it's making your life better, right, by avoiding people, then I think that's a really good thing. And it's just, okay, that's what it is, right? I'm being secure. I'm doing what's healthy for me, which is really the most important thing. And like you mentioned, the key word is boundaries. Yeah. Does
Okay.
that make
Thanks.
sense, Martin?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Anybody else have? Oh, can I tell you a podcast to listen to? I'll type it in the chat. Here's a good one. I like with The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes, is one. And you can find that on Spotify, you can find it on Apple, you can find it on YouTube. YouTube's usually they're free. Another one could be the Ed Milet show. Ed Milet, he's good. That's a great podcast that I like. Um, there's Tony Robbins, the Tony Robbins has a podcast. He's been around for forever. You could look that up. Um, I even like, one that I really like, and I'm not sure, one person who I would recommend if you're really interested in learning about the mind and how it influences a lot of things. His name is Joe Dispenza. You could look him up. So that's what I would start with. Yeah, any other questions, comments, concerns, announcements? Anybody has? Going once? Bueller? If not, I'm gonna give you 25 minutes back. Somebody has their hand up. Go ahead, Deanna. Are you muted? We can't hear you. Doesn't look like you're muted. Are you muted? I'll ask you to unmute. Do you want to type something in the chat? Because we can't hear you. Or I can't. Yeah, I think you're trying to speak, Deanna, and might be just choppy because we can't hear you. I hear like little choppiness things. Oh, do you have any tips on how to recognize an avoidant? Huh. Well, I think that's if somebody isn't expressing their feelings and communicating to you, or somebody who is kind of blowing you off all the time, who, doesn't really give you what you are looking for. And that doesn't even mean that they're avoidant. It's just somebody treating you like a human being and showing you self-respect. That's you developing boundaries, right? Again, when we have a secure attachment with ourselves, we we create these boundaries, right? And if somebody is not adhering to those boundaries, where they're not being nice to you, or they're being avoidant, or they're not speaking to you when you're trying to acknowledge them, or you're communicating and not communicating back to you, or they might say things that are pushing you away, really, that's when you would recognize that this person is an avoidant, you know. So I would be paying attention to that. And you could also, it's real easy to go into Chat GBT or Google, what are the signs of an avoidant attachment style person? And it'll give you that information real quickly. Again, that's the beauty of technology, is that we have all this information right at our fingertips. So I hope that answered your question. You're welcome. Anyone else before we go? All right, well, we do have a meeting next week, I believe. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, one of the things that, I would ask of you is, please, if you know anybody who you think could benefit from this group, please spread the word. Again, all these things I try to record and then put the recording in the actual chat. So that way, hey, you never know, you might go to one of these meetings, and a month from now you attended a meeting, and then a month from now you might meet somebody who needs that help from that particular practitioner. You're like, hey, I know somebody. And you come back to the holistic well-care meetup group, look in the past events, and you could get that person's contact information. That's one of the other reasons why I created this group, is to also have like a repository, and a database where people could come back and get the information that they need. So please spread the word. Thank you so much again for attending tonight, and have a great night, everybody. Take care. All right, bye-bye.